Welcome to School Mental Health Ontario and ThriveSMH's video podcast. In this series, we are discussing mental health and mental illness and how they're represented in social media. In this episode, we will be discussing misinformation on social media. But first, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Mady, my pronouns are she, her, I'm in grade 10, and I'm from Manitoulin Island.
Hi, my name is Kirin. My pronouns are she, her. I'm in my first year of university and I reside in Brampton.
Hi everyone, my name is Shwedhaa. I'm also in grade 10 and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm from Scarborough, Toronto.
Hi everyone, my name is Huda. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the newcomer student mental health consultant here at School Mental Health Ontario, and I'm from Durham region.
So to get things started up, I'm going to hit you guys with a life-changing question. When considering if you have free time and you could choose one of these options, which one would you do? Go skydiving or read a book?
I feel like I would probably just choose a book.
Yeah, I'm with Mady. I would rather read a book. I'm trying to start my reading era right now. While I would like to think that I would like to try a daredevilish act of skydiving, I know I could not do it. I would not make it through.
Guys, we only live once. We have to get out of our comfort zone, try new things. Guys, come skydiving with me. Can't be that bad. Worst is you break your head. That can't be that bad.
I'm literally thinking about it. I feel like my heart says skydive, but my mind says, girl, to read a book.
Seems like you'll be doing a solo skydiving trip, which I support you on. I support you. But since today is all about social media, I'm curious, how do each of you use social media? What purpose does it serve in your life? For me, I often use social media as a tool of entertainment or inspiration. I like to find a lot of cool outfit inspo on Pinterest or YouTube, or I just scroll the internet just to have a little laugh. It helps me communicate with my peers, especially starting this new chapter of university, lets me know what's going on at my school.
So I feel like for me, I use social media just to stay connected with family and friends. I live in a pretty rural area, so it's good to connect with people that are away. I also find that Pinterest is kind of cool too, with recipe ideas.
Yeah, for me, guys, I'm a little bit addicted to TikTok. Love to bother my mom and dad, sending them, useless TikToks they're probably not watching and just replying, so I'll stop sending them. And I'm always on my phone, so I'm always, on Pinterest, Instagram, TikTok, one of those three. But yeah, I love using it to text my friends as well and bother them as well.
I honestly love the funny reels on Instagram specifically, so I'm always sending it to friends or family who don't live nearby. Sometimes I won't even say hi, how are you? I'll just straight up send a reel. This is us. That's just my way of keeping relationships with some of my friends. I also like to read what's going on in the mental health field and just education and stuff. So sometimes I'll read boring stuff like that as well. I literally don't read the news. I get everything from social media.
I'm just curious to everyone, how do you find that social media influences your mental health? For me, sometimes, it can make me feel positive because I'm watching a funny video or I'm catching up with one of my friends, but I'm gonna be honest, a lot of the time social media just makes me feel very icky and miserable because there's so much content to consume. It kind of feels overwhelming at times, and a lot of comparison on social media.
Yeah, for me, definitely, when I'm watching my minion TikToks, I'm having a great time. I'm chilling. I love seeing Guru on my For You page all the time. But when I'm procrastinating and trying to, push away the fact that I have homework and I'm on TikTok, I like really easily get sucked into like the vortex, the black hole of social media. And once you like get into the habit of mindless scrolling, it is really hard to stop. Trust me, I have tried to put the phone down and someone's whispering in my ear, one more TikTok, one more TikTok. So you know what, I just gotta watch one more TikTok, and then one turns to 10, and then 10 turns to 50, and before you know it, it's 9 p.m. and I have to go eat dinner. But definitely, I think it's how I use that affects how my mental health works. So if I'm like, okay, I can watch for 10 minutes, but I gotta do this, I'm good to go. But if I don't set like restrictions for myself, I do tend to feel like more down, because I'm like watching so much content that my brain doesn't have time to process what I'm watching, and it just makes me feel like overstimulated sometimes as well.
And then for me, it's mostly like the unrealistic standards. Like, I think a couple years ago, there was like the trend of the that girl or the it girl. It was just like really unrealistic and hard to compare yourself to.
Thanks for sharing, y'all. I really appreciate all of your answers. And I definitely know what that vortex is. It really does sound like someone's whispering in your ear. So that's real. I definitely even struggle with that myself. I actually want to share a little bit of research around social media. So, social media has been found to impact young people's mental health both positively and negatively. So, some of the positives include facilitating social interaction and connection. So similar to like what I said, sometimes I'll just send some reels to folks. Impacts on communication. So online conversations don't require immediate responses or nonverbal cues. And lastly, opportunity for self-expression. And so some of the negative effects of social media on mental health include cyberbullying, a fear of missing out if you're not part of the social media world, social comparison, pressure, feeling of isolation after being rejected by others on social media, like if someone doesn't accept your friend request or follow you back, replacing in-person social interactions with online ones, leading to isolation, and lastly, especially when we're doom scrolling, poor sleep.
Yeah, definitely all the pros and cons you mentioned, I can definitely relate to them. Like sometimes, it's a good way to like contact my friends who don't live as close to me by, annoying them and spamming them with reels. But also I think poor sleep is definitely something I struggle with. So with these cons, what are some ways that you guys set boundaries with yourself with social media? So like I said earlier, I tend to set myself like a mini schedule or like an alarm, because if I just tell myself 10 minutes, I'm not going to do it in 10 minutes. If I set an alarm and my phone's going, get back to work, Shwedhaa, I'm going to get off my phone. I'm going to feel a bit threatened if my own phone is telling me to get off TikTok. So definitely putting restrictions on myself and being realistic, because I know if it's just 2 minutes, I'm not going to listen. If it's like a good 10 minutes, I can put it away, do what I'm doing, and then go back to watching TikTok.
So for me, I find like deleting the actual social media apps, like when I have busy things going on in my life, like during exam time, I'll just delete the app, and that just like takes away the temptation to go on.
Same, yeah. I started out like, going into my settings and putting like a specific timer, but I would always like retype in the password and just keep scrolling. I would not listen to the restriction, unfortunately. So instead I also delete the app, and sometimes I would try and sneak on my laptop and go into the browser version. So I got like a blocking website extension, so it cuts it off for me, and yeah, it keeps me off there.
I love all of these boundaries that you all shared. Those are actually some of the ones that I do as well. I also have to literally delete the app or ask like my friend to delete the apps, because that's just where we are at this point. But some examples pulled from managing social media fatigue is setting limits. So, similar to what you folks shared, establish boundaries by setting daily time limits for social media usage. So, consider using features on platforms that remind you when you've reached the limit that you've set. Digital detox. So, dedicate certain hours of the day or even entire days to disconnect from social media. So, use this time to engage in offline activities that bring you joy. Curate your feed. Unfollow accounts that make you feel, anxious or inadequate or make you feel like you're comparing yourself to others. And follow accounts that promote positivity, inspiration, and well being. Be mindful of your emotions and needs. So before scrolling, take a moment to check in with yourself. Are you in the right headspace to engage with social media right now? Focus on real life connections. So spend quality time with friends, family, and community offline. Have face to face interactions can be refreshing and fulfilling. Hobbies and passions. So rediscover or develop new hobbies that aren't connected to screens. These can be outlets for creativity and relaxation. Lastly, educate yourself. So learn about the impact of social media on mental health. Understanding the psychological aspects can help you make informed decisions.
So now let's take a moment to talk about what we mean by mental health information. Mental health information is information that you can rely on to support your mental health and manage mental health problems or mental illnesses if you need to. This is different from when you may be looking for inspiration, entertainment, or people to share your interests.
So for me, I try to stay away from social media when it comes to mental health information, just because I know how easy it is to just post something without doing proper research or just like not being fully aware of what the topic is. So sometimes I might just Google something and just in case my English teacher is watching this, I don't use Wikipedia, okay? I try to use websites that are approved by clinicians or like people who know what they're doing, or even if I want some general advice, it's like online forums like Quora or Reddit, they have scenarios that I can relate to and it can help me find advice.
I usually go to like credible sources like Thrive School Mental Health Ontario, or the Kids Help Phone. When I do use social media, it's often to just validate that there are people, going through similar experiences as me. But I also like to take it offline and speak to people who actually know me and aren't making generalizations to an audience. They understand who I am and my experiences.
And then for myself, I do like to also stick to credible sources. So I know About Kids Health is a really good one, and sometimes I'll use Mayo Clinic.
I think it's great that we all came up with great points about how we can use social media if needed, but it is better to stick to credible resources. Like you said, Mayo Clinic and ThriveSMH also has some really good points as well. And I think it is important that we're kind of trying to stay away from social media when we do come to get mental health advice, because it is really easy to see misinformation and think the wrong things.
So, misinformation refers to false or misleading information broadly. Misinformation is also an umbrella term, so it also includes things like disinformation or misleading, ambiguous information. Disinformation refers to false or misleading information that one spreads deliberately to deceive or mislead others. Misleading or ambiguous information involves sharing information without the full context. For example, if people are sharing personal experiences as fact rather than acknowledging individual differences. Have you spotted misinformation on social media? Why do you think it was false information?
So I have definitely seen some misinformation on social media. I know one of the more current trends that I have been seeing on Instagram was oh, I wasn't sad, I just needed to blank. And so they weren't actually validating that it's okay to be sad sometimes. And it's just kind of speaking as sadness as like missing a material thing.
Yeah, I've seen that trend a lot around as well. And for me, something that I saw that kind of stuck with me was a video. And I talked about that anxiety happens because of our cortisol levels. And if we exercise, anxiety's going to go away. Just need to exercise and be confident. Don't stress out. And obviously, I'm not no nutritionist, health dietitian person. But from my experiences, I don't think taking a couple steps is just gonna make my anxiety go poof. Like, obviously, it does have an effect. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I think anxiety is more complex than the fact that our cortisol levels are just high. But yeah.
I also saw a lot of misinformation on social media as well, to add to what you folks have said. But with like from companies trying to sell products that are, supposed to cure your mental health, or your mental health problems, or your mental illness, when they're really just trying to profit off of people who are in a vulnerable state. And it's really frustrating to see how they're trying to exploit them with tools that have not had proper research done about them. I've also noticed a trend in language where people are misusing words like impulsive and intrusive thoughts, and using them interchangeably, despite them being different experiences. And it's just interesting to see how some words are being co-opted and being used in an incorrect context.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, everyone. It's always disappointing seeing misinformation about mental health on social media, especially as a clinician. This is a newer area of research, so there isn't a lot on mental health specifically in social media. However, in one study, a group of medical professionals from the US analyzed 500 videos on TikTok that were tagged hashtag mental health advice or hashtag mental health tips. The team identified 31% of the videos as not scientifically accurate and 14% as potentially damaging. For example, suggesting users take specific medications. So I really want you to take a minute to think about how many videos you might scroll through in a day. Now imagine about 1 in 3 of those are sharing wrong information. So people who use social media more often, such as young people, are consuming more misinformation. Repeated exposure is a major reason why people start believing false information.
Personally, I am not shocked about how much misinformation there is. Social media is such a wide place. Anyone can upload whatever they want, whether that is backed up by credible research or not. But it does, make me wonder, how much am I consuming and how much am I, spreading to people I know? I often see misinformation in like ads, or even videos that I just scroll by.
Yeah, definitely agreeing with what Kirin said. It's so easy to post things on social media. And although it is a pretty big number, I kind of expected it, kind of not. But I think it's also kind of like, it's not just people who are making these things up just for views. Also, like, people who see advice and they repost it. It's like, there's a kind of like a chain, like a cycle of misinformation. I think that's also really interesting about how that contributes to the fact that not everything we see on social media is true.
And then for me, I never actually really paid attention to a lot of the misinformation, but now that we're seeing how much of these serious subjects are that you see on social media, they could be fake. I never really noticed that.
I think that it's dangerous or at least harmful because it is really easy to post and then you take in wrong information because, like Huda said, when the more you see misinformation, the more likely you are to believe it. And you can believe it without even like you're conscious, like you're not even thinking about it, you already start thinking that it's true. So I think that it really is harmful because people who aren't as advised, aren't as aware as what misinformation is, can take in the wrong information and it can really damage them in the future.
And then I think for me, it's just like the big cycle that it is. Like you spread it to others without even thinking. It's just an ongoing cycle.
I think misinformation often targets people who are vulnerable and seeking answers, and who are willing to, maybe not take a second look. And sometimes the information, like how we mentioned, taking certain medications or maybe like trying certain foods without fully knowing the history or experiences of the person who is intaking that media, it can be dangerous having no research behind it and generalizing to an audience.
Yeah, those are really great observations. Thank you, everyone, for sharing that. It's so important for us to be mindful of the impact that misinformation can have. So, there was a research study done looking at Facebook and Reddit groups for obsessive compulsive and related disorders. In these groups, despite people sharing that they encountered misinformation, more than a third of people, 37% to be exact, reported using the information that they found in these groups to make decisions about how they manage their illness. The challenging thing about this is that many people reported not consulting a health professional before they made these changes. These results are telling us that social media users may trust peer to peer recommendations as a reliable source of mental health advice, to the point where they don't follow up with professional guidance. This can be really harmful because it might lead to incorrect perceptions of mental health and illness and delay access to appropriate care.
So, why do you all think that people, despite knowing that there is a lot of misinformation on social media, still go to social media for mental health information? I think that not a lot of people may have access to mental health professionals, or they don't know where to look, have a community that they can turn to, ask these questions that people are asking on social media, or it may be taboo. And social media is a quick and easy way that feels personal to ask those lingering questions and get a response to.
Yeah, definitely about social media being accessible to anyone, because when you're trying to get professional help, you have to find a person, find a location, find a time that works for best for both of you, then call, and it's just like so many processes. Where with social media, just a couple taps on really any device you have, you can find something or some kind of answer to your question. So I think it really is just because of how accessible it is and how much content and misinformation there is that's posted.
So I feel like, people feel connected if they're seeing someone online that are going through the same things that you're going through. You just feel like trusting and you just feel like connected.
Those are some really great responses. Honestly, some people just really want to feel seen and heard, and like you folks shared, that it's so easy to get that on social media. So it is understandable. So another reason why actually a lot of folks find it really easy to just access information on social media is because there are very real barriers to mental health support. And I know this as someone who has, worked with schools, worked in community mental health, especially we know for Indigenous, Black, racialized 2S LGBTQ plus folks. There are very real additional barriers to mental health. But even though we know that these barriers are real, I want you to know that it is very much possible to receive that help through different avenues. And we do have resources that are going to be listed below. So even though you may be experiencing those barriers, I want to give you a little bit of hope that it is possible to seek out support with a caring adult who does genuinely care about you.
And so our goal in this episode was never to tell others what they should do, because at the end of the day, there are many reasons why people turn to social media for mental health information. Instead, we want you to consider where you get your mental health information from. Here are some things to keep in mind when considering what online sources you can rely on. This information is from School Mental Health Ontario's resources on evaluating online mental health information, which is linked in the description below. These tips can be used when thinking about social media, but can also be helpful about thinking about online sources in general.
So first step is consider the content. So does the content reflect up-to-date evidence rather than personal experiences alone? And are the messages shared supported by other sources? Also, do they avoid offering quick fixes or simple solutions to complex issues? Do they acknowledge individual differences in mental health needs and experiences? And does the information clearly state that its content is not a substitute for professional advice and encourages users to seek professional support when or if appropriate? If it's yes to most of these questions, that's a pretty good start. If it's no to most of these questions, proceed with caution or consider another source.
Next, consider the who is behind the content. Does the creator have any training, education, or traditional/cultural knowledge that would position them to offer mental health information? Are they linked with a known mental health group or organization? If yes to most of these questions, that's a good sign. If no to most of these questions, proceed with caution or consider another source.
Finally, consider if the content is a good fit for you. Is the source respectful of you and your identity, accessible in your own language, culture, and community, respectful of people experiencing mental illness? It doesn't contribute to stigma by dramatizing mental health issues for views. Is it focused on helping meet your needs rather than its own, like by selling me something or collecting your personal information? And is it engaging, relatable, easy to understand, sensitive, it's not graphic or upsetting, or anything else that is important to you? If yes to all these questions, this seems like a reliable source. If yes to these questions but no to a previous question, proceed with caution or consider another source. If no, this seems like it could be a deal breaker and you might want to consider another source.
Okay, so your mental health journey is unique and there are a variety of supports you can draw on. It's important to remember that you don't need to know everything. Rather, find a circle of supportive people, trusted resources, and services who can help you along the way. Not all strategies and coping skills may be applicable or work for you, so it's important to find out what fits you, such as music, dance, art, etc. So, some strategies that you can use in terms of finding a mental health clinician, especially if you're in school, you can seek out different clubs, you can find your school social worker, asking your guidance counselor, or any other caring adult that you may have in your community. It's so important for you to advocate for yourself when seeking mental health support.
So, as we are sadly wrapping up today's episode, I think something I've taken away is that not everything you see on social media can be trustable, and you should always make sure that sources you take information from or read are very credible.
What I'm taking away from this are that there are real systemic barriers of oppression as to why people may turn to social media as a tool to learn about mental health and find mental health support. I also think that mental health online, while it can be validating, sometimes the sources that we're getting them from don't always have our best interest in mind, unfortunately. So it's important to surround yourself with people who you trust and genuinely care about you, to provide those healthy coping strategies.
And for me, for wrapping up this episode, one thing that I am taking away is definitely like watching what you're perceiving and taking in from social media and making sure it is from a credible source.
There was one piece I was actually thinking about that you shared earlier, and I love how you mentioned like checking the credibility to make sure that who you're watching is a mental health professional or someone who has a background or training. I think that's a really good way to sift out and being mindful of what you're watching and who you're listening to.
All right, thank you everyone for spending your time with us today. Check out the next episode where we discuss how mental illness is talked about and shown on social media. Follow us on Instagram at ThriveSMH or sign up for School Mental Health Ontario's student email list to hear about new projects and opportunities to get involved. Bye!